when gold goes along with silver, it will be explosive. It will be the fear. When markets go up on fear, it's much more powerful than on greed. Central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and wealthy individuals, family offices, they actually want the physical, and they don't realize how these futures markets are run. And they're saying, well, we want to buy a future and we want delivery. And that's really ruining the paper game. And that's why we continue to see manipulation, arbitrage. People will start, they're draining physical metal from the exchanges in the West and taking it to China to sell it for profit.
Do you believe that really, realistically, that will be the case going forward? I mean, the governments will probably try to get a hand of a portion of that precious metals from the holders in a way of higher taxation. I'm not talking confiscation.
I don't want to buy gold because they might confiscate it.
Let's talk a bit about gold and silver specifically. Do you see gold entering a speculative phase, or is it just purely reflecting the financial chaos we are in or we are entering?
Yeah, I think it will look like speculative, but what it will be reflecting, I think, is fear. Fear of the currencies, fiat currencies, losing, people losing faith and confidence in fiat currencies. And part of that is to do with how our leaders and central bankers are running things. And you see what's going on now vis-a-vis the US and Iran, this war. All the Yeah, it just I think people are losing more and more confidence, not just in the US administration, even though there's still a lot of people who think Trump can do no wrong. But even in Europe, I think people are losing faith and confidence in the leaders here as well.
Yeah, that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, Europe is like completely shot itself. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose to kill the economies, not just in the EU, but in the UK as well. Like they've shut themselves off from cheap energy from Russia. The Germany is completely destroyed its nuclear energy industry because of what happened at Fukushima.
Yes, that
But
was a big mistake.
yeah, but I heard one country, I think it was Italy, apparently they're going to start
Yes.
looking into nuclear energy again. So maybe they're going to wake up. But I think they've done a lot of damage. And when people lose faith and confidence in the state and the central bank, they lose faith in the currency because these are the people who issue the currency. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's correct. And even the politicians acknowledge that they were wrong about the nuclear energy in Germany. Mario, just one question about gold, then we will move on. If gold were truly priced by the free market instead of the paper derivatives, what do you think the real price would actually be?
Yeah, I mean, a lot higher, but I can't really tell you where. But I think it is frustrating, and I've been involved with gold since 2002. And at the time, I worked in the bond markets as a futures and options broker. And I started following gold more closely, and I realized right away that it didn't look natural the way it traded. The same thing happened every day at the same time, which usually doesn't happen in the bond market. So, yeah, it is frustrating, but all it means is that when when gold goes along with silver, it will be explosive. It will be the fear, the fear. When markets go up on fear, it's much more powerful than on greed, I think. And that's what we're gonna see. So yeah, it should be a lot higher, of course, like in China. Silver's trading, for example, $10 higher than the paper price. Gold, not so much, but yeah, I think yeah, it should be a lot higher. But the the key is, I think, to be patient because eventually they will have to. Unless they let the price go higher, there will be a complete shortage. And that's what we're seeing, with some of these market closures is because there is a shortage. And the only way to stop the shortage is to allow prices to go higher because when prices go higher, people who have the physical metal, they might sell some into the market and it might also encourage people to explore for more of the metal. And even then, it takes time to explore gold, silver, or other metals, and then develop a mine. So yeah, higher prices will eventually come.
That is correct. You mentioned, yeah, Shanghai silver. I believe last week we had a 16% premium at one point. That's huge. What is that telling us? So that tells us that the Western markets are still heavily manipulated, and that let's call it Shanghai markets more realistic. They are probably in a way manipulated as well, but can you give my audience some clarification about this?
Yeah, yeah. For example, back in the early 1900s, there was a trader called Jesse Livermore. He's one of the most famous speculators, and he started out when he was younger. He didn't have enough money to have a brokerage account, so he used what was called a bucket shop. And bucket shops were run by gangsters, criminals, and people who ran betting and they horse races. And all you did was bet on the price of the stock. You didn't actually buy the stock. And I think that's how the Western commodity markets have been run, like bucket shops. Yes, they do say that you can take delivery, but usually it was only like 1% of all the trades would, of the open interest, people would want delivery of the physical metal. But now it's changing because central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and very wealthy individuals, family offices, they actually want the physical, and they don't realize how these futures markets are run. And they're saying, well, we want to buy a future and we want delivery. And that's really ruining the paper game. And that's why we continue to see manipulation because they're trying to hold on, but eventually they can't because there's the arbitrage. People will start, they're draining the physical metal from the exchanges in the West and taking it to China to sell it for a profit. And even in China, there isn't that much metal left. So all these years of manipulating the prices lower has created a shortage. That's what usually happens when not just markets, but politicians as well, when they put price controls, for example, for rents and other things. People who own houses or apartments to rent, yeah, they stop renting because, putting it up for rent because the price that they're forced to rent it at doesn't pay the bills. So it's the same thing with commodities, and yeah, and I think we're very near the end game of these paper markets, and that's why these exchanges are having problems and glitches. And I think a lot of these exchanges, eventually, you could see them closing for a day or two or a week, and people unable to get the real metal.
Yeah.
Uh, you have to pay a lot more, for just from dealers, but not from the exchanges.
Yeah, Mario, you said that gold and silver are out of the system. Do you believe that really, realistically, that will be the case going forward? I mean, the governments will probably try to get a hand of a portion of that precious metals from the holders in a way of higher taxation. I'm not talking confiscation. However, they will try to get a part of that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the country, the jurisdiction. Um, and I mean, governments and central banks have a lot of gold, but yes, they could put capital gains tax, like in the Netherlands. They even want to have unrealized capital gains taxes, which is crazy. Here in the UK, if you hold gold and silver coins that are minted in the UK, there's no capital gains tax. But you know that could change. Anything can happen. Governments, when they're desperate, they'll resort to anything. But and people have said that, and for years, you know, they've asked me that, and they said, "Oh, I don't want to buy gold because they might confiscate it." But you know, if you didn't buy gold 10 years ago because of that, you're losing out a lot right now as it is. So I think it's, yeah, there is the risk, but I still think it's good to have some, gold and silver outside the system and try to, yeah, keep it well hidden and find ways to, use that gold and silver without having to, let's say, go back into the monetary system. And by that, I mean privately dealing with other people. So, someone has something you want, you say, look, I've got an ounce of gold. Do you want to exchange that? And you just do the deal like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. What would you do? How would you position if you are, let's say, in Europe, you live in Europe, how would you preserve wealth? How would you position your investment strategy going forward? Is it just to invest in precious metals or something else? Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, I would make sure I would keep some physical gold and silver outside the banking system because, if they come in with this digital euro and there's a crisis, uh, and you only got like old euros, let's say 100,000, and then they say this old euros you can only spend 20,000, then you've lost access to all your savings. But if you've got gold and silver outside, they shouldn't really be able to touch it. So I would be doing that in terms of investments. I mean, that's up to people to decide which businesses they think are worthwhile having. But I would probably try to stay away from
Market.
financial businesses like insurances and banks and things like that, and
Sure.
focus more on like consumer staples because people always need to buy things and eat and drink and stuff like that.
You mentioned Bank of England and central banks. Central banks claim they've learned from the past crisis. From your perspective, have they actually fixed anything or just delayed the inevitable?
I think they've just delayed the inevitable. Central banks, they are, along with the governments that give them the power, without government legislation, there is no central bank because it's a monopoly. So what central banks try to do is management of perception economics. I think it was Jim Sinclair who coined that phrase. It's called a mope.
Yeah.
And basically, they're the ones who inflate because they can create currency out of thin air. But their job is to keep the public, to keep perception of the inflation they create under control to make sure investors are like happy with what they do. So they're always like they use open mouth policy, right? In their meetings, they try to like manage perception of the markets. And I think they're kind of losing the game because since 2022, long-term bond yields, government bond yields have been rising. I mean, they rose a lot in 2022, 2023, and they've been under control, but they're still really high compared to like what they were from like 2008 to 2021. They're near 0 and 1. Now they're more like 4 or 5.
Yeah. Mario, hypothetical question. If I wake up tomorrow and the global monetary reset had begun, what would be, how would the headlines look like? How would that look in the real terms? I mean, the next monetary reset.
Yeah, I think there are two ways it could happen. It could happen gradually. I'm sorry about this. I need to. Can you edit
Yeah,
that?
sure.
I don't know why this is coming up. I need to turn off. Sorry about that.
No worries, I can edit.
So I think a global monetary reset could ha happen in two fashions. One is just gradually, naturally, allowing the market to take things where they want it to go, like gradually. And by that, I mean allow the gold and silver price to keep rising in all currencies. And to some extent, that's happening. Or there is another option that on the weekend, all the major central banks and governments of the West, they announced that they're going to close the market for, let's say, a week. And then after that, we're going to have a new system and all currencies, for example, will be fixed, or the price of gold will reset to a certain level, and then people can't react, and unless you have the gold and silver, you get left holding the old currency. They might bring in a new currency, and they might give people a limit of how much they can spend, uh, something like that. I have a feeling they might try to do just the gradual one, what they're doing right now. And what they're doing right now, very few people realize that it's going on. So it's a little bit like, the analogy of the frog in the in the pot of water. You boil it slowly, and then all of a sudden, they start realizing if they don't jump off, they could die. I think that's what they might do, because if you look back in 1934, when the U.S. Reset the price of gold from $20.67 to 35. Um, Back then, gold was part of the system. The dollar was a fixed weight of gold. Now it's traded freely. So that's why I think that's how I think it might happen.